Hello, I'm coming to you from my mom and dad's home in Istanbul. They're out and then they let me do my recording here. Also, I made these two drawings after they came back from Africa. They were really into animals, and so um, I did a few drawings for them, and so it's a nice backdrop. The reason why I'm making this video is because my story changed, and I wanted you to know the new story. So basically, there was an evolution out of wanting to build a creative studio to wanting to build a community center. And it's a really important life change, I think, for me. And I think now I finally tweaked these ideas that I've been having to fit me, what I can do, what I can offer, and then also try to make the world a better place, if it doesn't sound too cheesy.
I think what I was trying to address with the creative studio didn't address a very basic problem that I now feel is more important to address than creating an art studio, which essentially was the fracturing of our community.
So that's where I'm coming in through this idea. Is I've been here for 4 years and I've done a few collaborations, but at first, not very many people were helpful. There wasn't really a community feeling. It was kind of a cutthroat. I'm going to be competitive with you, and there was just like a lot of exclusion, and I felt that big time. And I think that's why I wanted to start the studio in the first place. And now I think my energy and the things that I've been reading, the things that are going on in the world, which is changing so rapidly, it just seems like building a community center is much more in line with what Turkey needs, Istanbul, or at least my neighborhood. So the idea is basically to set up the first trial of this idea in Moda. And I'm choosing Moda because that's where I live, and I'm thinking that it will be easier for my roots to take shape there, and I know the people. And eventually, this is an idea that if it works in Moda, I think it could be adaptable in so many places in Turkey, and I think it's necessary. And I'll tell you why I think it's necessary. I think there's gonna be a political shift. I think we saw a little glimmer of hope with the mayoral elections, and I feel there's a momentum. And if the institutions don't catch up with this momentum, then we're just going to go back into the same bullshit that we've been living. So basically, in order to plant the seeds of a society that can erect good institutions, economic institutions, education institutions, blah, blah, blah. We have to really work on some of our cultural problems. And I think that when we help each other out, we all benefit. Okay, so the community center has 3 different areas of human activity: education, art, and dialogue. And I have a whole list of different kinds of gatherings that I want to do for education, different ones for art, and then the dialogue part. Okay, so first I want to focus on art and education. The idea is that I would pair up with so many people because I have so many different ideas. The education part, and let me just talk about the education part. So the theory of evolution is not being taught, or is being just kind of not taught well enough. And so I wanted to reach out to the Richard Dawkins Foundation, and they do really great work for teaching kids about the theory of evolution. So I wanted to see maybe there's a collaboration on that. I also wanted to get teachers together. I don't know how I'm going to get them together yet. But I made a curriculum in English very similar to one that I experienced when I was 13 in Missouri. And it was a class you get one case study and for that term. And it's a case that goes to the Supreme Court, and it doesn't have a black and white answer. There's two competing virtues, and you have to just establish your logic and then present it to the class. But it's a critical thinking class. It's a logic class. It's a ethics class. So I got different cases, and what I want to do is Turkify it. So it's more relevant to what's going on here. And I think that that's where I really fell short in preparing that curriculum. So I want to gather willing and able teachers to think on this and how we can make a critical thinking class together. Technology classes that, teach physical programming with like Arduinos or blah, 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 that. Sexual education. I have this friend of a friend that's a gynecologist at a state hospital on the other side of Istanbul, the European side, and she's got some really funny stories of like what the girls have like made up in their minds and how far away it is from the truth of like what anatomy is and how sex works. And I mean, anyway, so when I come to America, I hope that maybe I can make a trip this year. But I don't know. Maybe I can observe like sex ed classes and see how they teach, and then bring that here, because I think that the sexual education is just like non-existent here. So, well, after hearing the stories from this gynecologist. Anyway, so those are things that I wanted to tackle in education, and you can think about it like Kumon is a really good example. I don't know if you guys know about Kumon, but like in Missouri, the math in public schools, it's okay, but it could be more vigorous or whatever. And so my mom and dad sent me to Kumon. And Kumon is like a Japanese math center. You sit down, you do your tests, you get like these sticker things, and then you get a trophy if you like have so many stickers and blah, blah, blah. It's really cool. And basically there's a structure, there's a transaction, monetary transaction. Your parents pay for this supplementary education. So where you think the schooling is lacking, you have an alternative to the after school to pay for these classes. So that's the kind of like business model that I wanted to have for the education part. And then the artistic part is, it's a whole bunch of things. I don't think I should go into that in this video, or else I will bore the shit out of you. Anyway, so art and education are the first things that I want to hone in on. And then after I become more familiar with the community, the community becomes more familiar with me, there's a level of trust, then we can move on to the most important thing. Actually, they're all important, but the most edgy part of it, which is the dialogue part. I got my first rejection from a fellowship. It was the first time that I was able to like just calm down and just write everything out. And I've been writing for like 4 months. And so I've got my head in a good space. And I have this tendency to hold things back until it's like perfect. And I know that that's bad. It doesn't work in this like fast pace, you gotta push stuff out. I'm just terrible at that, and I really am sorry about it. But I've been working on it, and now it's getting to a point where I need to start talking about it, like to like actual people, not just the people in my head. And so I applied for this thing. It was through a podcast called How I Built This with Guy Raz. It's one of my favorite podcasts, and Guy Raz is like one of my all-time favorites. He has a couple more podcasts, and if he only knew how much the podcast really meant to me. I think there's another person in this world that hasn't been more affected by that person than I have. But anyway, I didn't get the fellowship, and that would have brought me to San Francisco to this summit called How I Built This Summit, and then I would have been able to talk about this idea to other people, maybe people with money, maybe people that would be able to think outside the box, because on all of the shows that he has done, it's about how persistent people are and how much they believed in their idea. And it's like, okay, so now I'm at this point where I have to take a risk. And it's very scary because the economy is so bad, but I really think that this is the idea, and I think I need to prove it. So I don't know exactly how I'm going to go about that. That's like the next step. That's what I'm thinking about constantly. Like what risk can I take, like financially, and then who can I ask, and all that stuff. Okay. So that's a really amazing evolution in my life. I feel like I really hit it now, and I'm gonna just keep going. Okay, so I have the Fanzine coming up. I got interviewed by a really cool lady that worked for the Secretary of State, and she's living in Istanbul now. And I might start working at a kindergarten for French kids and teach them about illustration and storytelling. We'll see how that goes. And I'm visiting on Sunday. I'm visiting a Syrian community center that's in Turkey, that's in Istanbul. So thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting. And if you like what I'm doing, please tell your friends, because I'm trying to now convince other people that this is a worthwhile endeavor, and the more people that are behind it, the better chances I have to get more people on board. So thank you. Have a wonderful day. Peace and happiness.